Hello. Today's stories come from r/MaliciousCompliance. We've got 4 stories of peak entitlement being served with clever yet satisfyingly malicious compliance. Our first story is Yell at me for delivering? Well, time to get some exercise. Some years ago, I was driving pickups and deliveries P&D for a trucking company in Denmark. P&D is the part of the transport chain where you usually deliver small quantities to multiple customers on a route, kind of like UPS or FedEx, but in semis or rigid box trucks. It was nearing the end of the day, and I had to deliver a trampoline to a residential area. Mind you, this is in Europe, so things may be a bit different than in the US regarding rules and regulations. It was a fairly new area with plenty of space, but I had to reverse in because there was no way of turning around. But no problem. The road was wide, and so were the corners I had to go around. I put my semi in reverse and started going backwards. And of course, I was delivering to the last house on the street. Now, the road climbed a bit and was about 600 or 700 meters long, but it all went fine. When I finally got to the end of the road and got out of my truck to unload this trampoline, some guy was already standing behind my truck and started yelling and swearing at me. I was the biggest idiot on this earth. How the heck could I even think of going in there with a semi? I could have run over all the kids in the neighborhood. No one was out. I had absolutely no valid reason for being there and could get the heck out of there right away. Instead of starting an argument with person, I calmly asked him where he lived. He pointed at the house and said, "Number 74. And lo and behold, where was I delivering? You guessed it, number 74. So I, again very calmly, told this man, "Well, in that case, I have a trampoline for you." "Oh," the man said. "Well, I would like it if you could." "But," I interrupted, "since I have no business being in here with a semi, I will be waiting for you at the end of the road," and pointed to the direction I just came from. Mind you, this is the big model, weighing about 130 pounds, so you might want to bring a wheelbarrow. The joy it was seeing him come all the way down the road with his wheelbarrow, and then trying to get this 130-pound trampoline up in the wheelbarrow and starting his long, heavy walk 700 meters up to his house again. Priceless. People have all the comments and criticisms until they realize the thing they're critical of actually benefits them. So typical. At least OP made this guy eat his words. Let's check out the comments for 2 other anecdotes from truckers who have encountered the same types of customers. Tony Soprano's Alive said, "I deliver for an XL Amazon warehouse in a 24-foot box truck, and the amount of grief I get. Dude, I have a job to do. I'm more than capable of driving this truck. I have a commercial driver's license. And it's literally your fracking mattress you ordered while you're yelling at me about the truck in your stupid HOA residential neighborhood. The frack do you want from me? I feel your pain, and way to stick it to the guy." Pixel Tash shared, "My husband drives Arctics for a living, but used to drive wagon and drag. He would do drops in the fabric district of London's East End, tiny roads, alleys into the back of the factories, roads that had been there since before cars were invented. So he would drop his trailer at the entrance to the alley and back the wagon down the alley to deliver bales of cloth to the factories. One day, he had just got in position for unloading, and this jumped up little knob in his BMW started shouting and swearing at him about how he was blocking the alley, and Knob couldn't get his shiny Beamer out. My husband started to explain that he was delivering and would be 10 minutes at most once the factory men came out to get the truck unloaded. When Knob started shouting, "Do you know who I am? I own this fracking factory, and you are stopping me from getting to a very important client," hubby said, "Okay, sign here and I'll be out of your way." Knob signed the delivery, refused paperwork, and hubby drove off back to his trailer to rehook it. Knob and the Beamer raced off, flicking the V's and shouting at hubby as he went. No skin off hubby's nose. He had the signed paperwork, signed by the owner refusing the delivery. He finished the rest of his deliveries and went back to base. Note, this was before mobile phones were common or cheap. His boss was doing his nut because the Knob and the Beamer had been on the phone to them every 20 minutes asking where their delivery was. Hubby simply handed over the signed paperwork, explained what happened, and clocked out. His boss went back into the office with an evil grin. Hubby found out the next week that Knob in the Beamer wasn't the owner, but the owner's son, and his dad made him pay personally for a weekend delivery for the cloth he refused delivery of, and they were late on getting the clothing order out and lost a small fortune. Our second story is an example of what happens when trying to fix something that isn't broken. It's called HR Says Only Smart People Can Work Here. I work for a small company and we have a one-man HR department. We often get all sorts of memo detailing policies that sound good on paper, but never make practical sense. I think maybe HR got all its education on YouTube or Reddit, or learned it while being mentored after hours by the CEO. Recently, HR implemented a new standardized testing for screening new candidates, which scores candidates on their skills in mathematics, language, logic, and a bunch of industry-specific questions. The idea is to weed out those who present well on paper and in person, but in fact can't do the most basic stuff. While this could be an excellent idea to weed out the morons that keep walking through the door, HR thought it's an excellent idea to make everyone, including those who already have been here for years, to do it as well. For the employee files, of course. HR gave metrics for where scores should range for new candidates, sent us links to complete the tests, and requested that they are completed by Friday. As we all know, HR never does things just for employee files. We suspect HR is trying to get rid of a few crucial people who are not great with computers, not fast on the calculator, but are in fact the beating souls to the workplace. Everyone at the office pretty much all boycotted the test. When HR pressured the CEO to threaten our bonuses, we begrudgingly complied. HR wants to score us based on arbitrary standardized tests as benchmark? Sure. We spent the next 3 days after hours working on the tests together, one test at a time. At the end, we all scored 9 out of 10 in every category because we got some pretty bright people helping out. And guess what? We forced HR to do the same test, and HR scored 5 out of 10 for math, 4 out of 10 for logic. Guess who should be on the chopping block? How does HR wield so much power in certain workplaces? Threatening bonuses is such a great way to keep engaged employees, and standardized tests really are the best way to measure a worker's capacity to function in their likely specialized role. Sounds like the team at this office is well functioning despite their dysfunctional HR department. Let's check out the comments that went in all kinds of directions. None of them had good things to say about this HR department. OP shared HR's justification for the low score. My job does not require math. Mysterious Lie said, or logic, apparently. Apprehensive Hat added, and this is the more dangerous bit for policymakers. Cloudy Automation said, it would have been more interesting for everyone to have scored 0 out of 10 and to see if the CEO was willing to fire the entire company. Hunk Linux said, previous workplace. Do they do drug testing here? If they did, they'd have to fire half the techs. So, no. Mafrog said, I'm always the one randomly chosen because they know I won't fail the test. John Luck Pickard said, on behalf of your coworkers, thank you for your sacrifice. HR Gamer Guy said, HR should have had all current employees take it and use those scores to create the benchmark for external. You have to validate the tests or face legal problems. They did this butt backwards, and with the wrong intent. Someone else said, with a written notice saying that the results would not be considered with regard to performance pay or continued employment. That's the only way I would be prepared to complete such a survey. Daenerys Mama Dragon said, though they can say that, but still look at it and find another arbitrary reason to fire you if they so decide. Our third story is titled, You Want Me to Coerce an Inspector After Someone Else Did the Work? This happened years ago. I had just started working as an independent electrician, and one day I received a call from a new customer. He was one of those people that flips homes in lower-income neighborhoods. I'll call him Todd, but honestly, I've forgotten what his name is. Todd asked me to meet him at a vacant house he recently bought to give him an estimate for a full rewiring job. He was 30 minutes late, so I was already unimpressed with him. Upon entering the house, which was right after a rainstorm had passed through, we found an inch of water covering the hardwood floors. There was water pouring out of small holes in the columns on the front porch. Everything was soaked. Instead of showing me around, Todd called his business partner and brother and spent the next 20 minutes cussing him for not fixing the roof. I'm standing around and listening to his man baby rage on full display. The whole time I'm thinking there's no way I'm going to work for this guy. His fuse was way too short and his anger was out of hand. I gave him a price, which admittedly was the I don't want to do this job price, and didn't hear back from him until months later. Todd called me later that year. He explained that he had found an electrician from 3 states away and had paid the electrician with ceramic tiles instead of cash. The problem now? Well, he needed an inspection from the city electrical inspector. I agreed to meet the inspector for him, which I would bill him for. I went back to the house about 20 minutes before the inspector showed up and saw numerous issues. When the inspector arrived, we walked through together. Every issue I saw, the inspector also saw. He pointed them out, and every time I agreed with him that the work was not up to code. This inspector kept looking at me with a puzzled expression. After we did a complete walkthrough, I finally explained to the inspector that I didn't do any of the work and was hired to get him to pass the inspection. He asked me if I thought he should, and I told him, absolutely not. I got paid for my time, I got paid to repair all the violations, and I formed a strong relationship with that inspector, who was always lenient with me on all my future jobs. Well played by OP. Todd sounds like a dud. When you try to cut corners like he does, you really end up paying more in the end, especially when you don't understand how the system works. Inspectors don't typically just pass shoddy work, as it becomes a bit of a liability issue. Let's check out the comments where we'll find some funny stories and some good advice from several trades. The next story said, ethics, priceless. Co-kind said, business, ethics. Deming4 said, was it John Maxwell that said there's no such thing as business ethics? There's just ethics, and you either have them or you don't. My brain says it's something like that. Firethorn added, in this case, Inspector refused to overlook the first electrician's mistakes, then became friends with OP and is willing to overlook OP's issues in future jobs. So the ethics are muddy. Business ethics. Mr. Awesome said, electrician here. Sometimes my potential customers think my prices are too high. That's completely understandable. You should always shop around. But if you get someone unqualified to do the work, it will cost a lot more for me to come back and fix it. Fade to Blackout said, if you think it's expensive to hire a professional, just wait until you hire an amateur. Reddit. Someone else said, oh, did you hire the same fence guy that I did? Sarktoth said, no, but my next door neighbor did. Our last story is, can't quit my job if I'm taking the uniform home? Guess I'm leaving naked. Just saw a similar story that reminded me of how I quit one of my first jobs. So back when I was a teenager, around 14 years old, I worked for the shop down the road as their weekend baker, which was mainly just defrosting pre-cooked items or browning pre-cooked bread in the ovens. My boss's daughter also worked there as a checkout staff. However, she would just call in sick, i.e. hungover, every weekend, so of course her dad would let her off the hook and make me cover her shift. So I would work 5 a.m. to 7 p.m. most weekends. After a couple years, I decided I was quitting and gave them my 2 weeks' notice. My boss asked me to stay an extra week to train the new weekend baker, which I agreed to. At the end of the 3rd week, I went into my boss's office and did the usual. Well, it's been great working with you, to which he replies, so OP, the extra week you work to train the new baker means you have been here 2 years, which means according to the policy, you need to work 4 weeks' notice instead. So I'll see you next week. Also, you need to give us back your uniform on your last shift, and it needs to be freshly cleaned. Being a petulant teenager who was tired of waking up at 4 a.m., I stared at him in disbelief for a couple of seconds, waiting for the crap-eating grin on his face to laugh and say, just kidding, have a good one. That moment didn't come. So I walked out the office, stripped down to my boxers, folded up my baker's whites, my trousers, and even the little mesh fedora on top, walked into his office again and dropped the uniform on his desk and walked home. He followed me downstairs and through the shop shouting about how I would never work anywhere again. Thinking back, that must have been a strange thing for customers to see. It was a 10-minute walk home in the summer sun, nothing arduous. Apparently, according to his daughter, who got back in touch with me a couple years later, I'm now one of the stories my old boss tells people when he's had a few drinks. Not in a nice, funny story way. Edit. I live in England, and yeah, it's illegal to make kids work 14-hour days, but then it's also probably why retail shops love employing teenagers because they're just grateful for the money and don't really know their rights. Also, for those asking, yes, we did, but not when I worked there, so I don't know if that counts. I think I just have a bad habit of sleeping with people I have worked with or work with. Thankfully, not anymore. Final edit. Thanks everyone for the awards and stuff, but also, thank you more for all the amazing replies. Instead of replaying embarrassing things I've said at work throughout the day tonight in bed, I'll be thinking this memory through over and over with all your hilarious comebacks, comments, and revenge plans edited in. This was 15 years ago now, and I live across the country with my amazing wife, living a humble but good life, which I feel in itself is the ultimate moral victory. Even if OP didn't know what his rights were in terms of labor law, he knew something wasn't right. I'd love to know how customers recounted this story over supper while eating their dinner rolls or enjoying dessert. Let's check out some pretty funny bakery-themed comments. Coder Joe 1 said, should have run out past the customers screaming, "No, I won't work naked! Screw you, old P." Today I messed up Ask Me Anything said, walking out in boxers, "Find someone else to make the holes in the donuts. I quit." Mr. Oopsie Daisy said, "Hey, that's a trade secret." OP replied, "Thinking back, I wish I had been that clever, ha." Sam Gunn said, or even just, "I haven't worn a hairnet on my privates for the last 4 years. I refuse to wear one now. I can't work in these conditions." Or, "Don't you people know what's in those scones?" Hellcat Paws said, "You already gave him notice, and he thought working out your notice meant you'd have to give even more? What an absolute cockadoodle." Triple C said, "Chicken? Cockerel? Chook? Bird?" Millhouse said, "I read it as chicken. Haha." If you've enjoyed the story and would like to hear more, consider liking, subscribing, and leaving a comment. Thanks, and bye for now.